What are some of the legitimate reasons to file for your Social Security as early as you can? Hey, I'm Doug Ray. I'm the founder of the Wealth Guardians radio show and the Ray Financial Group.
And I'm Brice Payne, and you've entered The Vault, the Wealth Guardians video series on all things pertaining to retirement planning. In this episode, we're going to cover your different Social Security filing options, why you generally want to wait, the 5 reasons that you may consider filing earlier rather than later, and a few things that you want to be aware of before filing. Don't forget to hit these little like and subscribe buttons down there below the screen if you're so inclined to catch future episodes of the Wealth Guardians video series. And okay, Doug, let's go ahead and get started on it. Let's talk about the different Social Security filing options out there.
Well, yeah, everybody knows the earliest you can file is age 62. Okay, a lot of people do file then. Maybe they're doing it right, maybe they're doing it wrong. Then, of course, there's a thing called full retirement age, and that depends upon the year you were born. For example, me, I was born in 1956, so my full retirement age was 66 and 4 months.
Anybody born after 1960, 60 or after is going to be age 67.
67, right. And then, of course, the latest you can file, or the latest you should file, is 70.
Right.
And that gives you all the delayed credits that you get, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Okay. Well, before we get into some reasons why you might want to file early, general conventional wisdom is that you would want to file as late as possible. There's a reason for that. Let's go over that reason on why somebody would want to file as late as possible.
Yeah, so basically from 62 to 70, you get these things called delayed credits, and it works out to be about an 8% per year growth. But on top of that, you get the cost of living adjustments. So think about it in this regard. This is like a guaranteed pot of money that's growing at 8% plus for you year after year after year. And over time, that makes a big difference between your age 62 benefit and your age 70 benefit.
A huge difference. Yeah, we do the math. You can do the math yourself and see what a difference that makes between age 62 and age 70. All right, so that's generally the reason why somebody would want to delay if they can. But let's talk about the 5 reasons why somebody would want to file earlier if they needed to. And the first reason that we've got is, do you have an investment better than that 8%? So instead of you not filing and getting 8% return on your Social Security investment, so to speak, if you took that money out and invested it somewhere else, do you have some pool of money that's guaranteed to grow at 8% or better?
Guaranteed is the word, because I think that animal died on the vine a long time ago.
It would be a stretch if you've got that. But if you do, then yes, that would be a legitimate reason to file for Social Security earlier, give up that 8% guaranteed growth rate in Social Security up till age 70, and invest that into money elsewhere. But as Doug says, it's got to be guaranteed, because that's what it is with Social Security. There's no ambiguity about that. It is going to be an 8% growth, more or less. So that's number one. The next reason that somebody might want to file earlier, Doug, is they simply need the money now.
They simply need the money. And, we tell our clients all the time, hey, this is your money. If you want it, get it. We're just showing you how to basically get the most you can over your life expectancy. But yeah, if you need the money, or here's another thing. If your dream goal is to retire early and the only way you can do that is collecting your Social Security early, then fine, do it.
All right, so that's number 2, is you need the money now. There's really no other option for you. Some people are fortunate enough to have saved some money aside, and what we call the gap years between the years that they retire and when they file for Social Security, they can fund their own retirement. But if you're not in that position and you have to file for Social Security, okay, then that's another legitimate reason to file now rather than later. The third one we want to go over is your life expectancy. Doug, there is something called a break-even age, and that is if you add up all of your Social Security benefits month after month, how far is that growing? Well, if you filed at 62, obviously you started growing that pile of Social Security benefits earlier, but it's growing at a slower rate. Whereas if you filed later and it's growing at a faster rate, where are those two lines going to catch up with each other? For most people, that's somewhere around the age 79 to maybe age 81.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the hardest concepts for people to determine when to file for their Social Security. They get the math. They understand it's going to grow till 70 for them, but they don't know how long they're going to live. You know, God didn't promise us tomorrow, but at the same time, He didn't tell us when we were coming home either. But you have to sit back and reasonably examine the situation and say, okay, here I am, 65 years old. I'm in good health. Can me and my wife reasonably expect to make it to 80 or past? And if the answer is yes, then maybe a longer strategy filing makes sense. Unfortunately, there are things in our family history. Men have a history with heart disease that is hereditary. If that's your situation, maybe an early filing makes sense.
Right. You have to make it, if you wanted to delay, you would have to make it to that basically age 79 to 81 age frame there. And if you know you've got a pretty good sense that I'm not going to make it to that point, then that's a legitimate reason to consider filing earlier. There's no point to wait till 70 if you're going to only be collecting benefits for 5 years or so. You might as well have been collecting a smaller benefit earlier on. It would have added up to more. All right. The fourth one that we want to cover, Doug, is for whatever reason, you simply don't want to touch your investments. We see that with people from time to time. Maybe they've inherited something from their parents. That's the bulk of their investments. If they wanted to delay Social Security, that would mean that they have to touch those investments, start selling them, taking distributions from them, and they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel that they've had some legacy stock, or they've had McDonald's stock since 1980, and they're just not ready to give that up yet, Apple stock, something like that. Okay, that would be a legitimate reason to maybe file for Social Security earlier as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it may not make financial black and white sense, but honestly, if that's the way a person feels about this legacy investment or whatever they want to call it, then that's fine. That's their prerogative.
Right. So that would be another reason that you would consider filing earlier rather than later. The last one that we want to go over is spousal Social Security. So if there is a couple and one of the two members passes away, the surviving member gets to take whichever Social Security amount was higher. Well, in a lot of cases, that is the man's Social Security that was higher because perhaps the woman stayed home and raised kids for a number of years. So she didn't contribute to Social Security for a number of years. So her benefit is lower. Well, if she is going to go ahead and inherit the spousal benefit or the widow's benefit at a certain point in time, it doesn't make sense for her to have waited all the way till age 70 to file for her benefits when it's only going to be so many more years before she's going to switch to the other one. So numbers wise, it would have made more sense for, in this case, her to have filed earlier on and just collected more benefits earlier on, even though it's a smaller monthly benefit.
Exactly. I mean, if your spouse makes more money than you and has historically done that, and her Social Security benefit's going to be more, then well, maybe you should go ahead and turn your benefit on early.
Numbers wise, that can make sense as well.
Absolutely.
All right, so that covers the 5 reasons why you might want to consider filing earlier rather than later. But before we leave you here today, we want to talk about a couple of things before you file, whether it's earlier or later, things that you should be aware of as far as Social Security goes. And the first one is the earnings test. Doug, lay it on the line for us. What is the earnings test?
All right, so between age 62 and your full retirement age, if you're still working and you make over a certain threshold of income and you turn your Social Security on early, then what's going to happen is for every $2 above that threshold, they're going to take $1 of your benefit away, okay? But they're not going to keep it forever. What they're going to do is they're going to take that money that they took from you and do another calculation when you hit full retirement age and pay it back to you, not in a lump sum, but over your life expectancy.
So that's called the earnings test. And as Doug said, that is only applicable up until the year that you turn full retirement age. So if you're still working, you file for Social Security at 62, be aware, and I'm using rough numbers here, it's around $22,000 a year. If you make over that, that's going to start impacting how much Social Security you get. They're not permanently taking it away from you, as Doug said. They're just withholding it until you do turn your full retirement age. Then they calculate how much they did withhold and start slowly adding it back into your Social Security checks. That does not happen after you have turned your full retirement age. So if you're 67 and you file for Social Security, you do not have to worry about this. It's just before your full retirement age. So that's one thing you have to be aware of before you file for Social Security. The other one, Doug, the second one of the 3 is the tax torpedo.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So basically, based on how much you earn, your Social Security can be taxed from 0 to 35%, 50%, or 85%. And you want to consider that before you turning it on. Even after you've turned full retirement age, if you're still working and you turn on your Social Security, then you may run right into that tax torpedo and not even realize it. So in some instances, it might be better for you to wait, collect those 8% delayed credits rather than hitting that tax torpedo and having Uncle Sam collect that extra money.
Right. If I'm remembering the numbers right, in 2023 for a couple that is filing jointly, if you have made your provisional income is under $24,000, which is kind of hard to do, then you're not going to have any of your Social Security taxed.
Right.
If you're between 24 and 34, and again, I'm using rough numbers here, then 50% of your Social Security is going to be taxed. If you're over that 34, then it's 85% of your Social Security is going to be taxed. So you got to understand what provisional income is. We're going to do an episode on provisional income and how that is different than your adjusted gross income. Once we do that episode, the link will be right up here above my head for that. So you can go ahead and click on that, have a better sense of what provisional income is. But that's the second thing you need to be aware of is the tax torpedo when it comes to Social Security. And the third thing that we want you to be aware of, Doug, is once you file, you've only got 1 year to undo your filing. And when you do that, that means you have to pay back everything that you already collected in that last year or however long it's been since you filed. So if you're thinking, I'm not sure, I'm going to go ahead and file like this now and maybe we'll change it later, you better realize what that 365-day clock is, because after we hit day 366, you can't change your filing.
Until you reach full retirement age. When you get to full retirement age, then you can change it again, and you don't have to pay anything back.
That's suspending. It's a little bit different than unfiling.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the third thing that we want you to be aware of. We hope this episode helped. Doug, anything else we want to add here?
I think we got it all.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Vault. Feel free to hit these like and subscribe buttons down below the screen there if you're so inclined to catch future episodes of The Vault with Doug, Garrett, and myself. And remember, financial plans do not create themselves. I'm Brice Payne.
I'm Doug Ray.
And this has been The Vault.